finished the round. Leach-Howard, I'll be doing the assessment on the cardiovascular system, the peripheral system, and the abdomen. I'll begin by inspecting the pericardium for heaves, lifts, or pulsations. None are noted. I'll begin by identifying the pericardial points and palpating them for pulsations as well as thrills. All right, so the aortic is in the second intercostal space to the right of the sternum border. Pulmonic is to the left in the second intercostal space of the sternum border. Eve's point is in the third intercostal space to the sternum border. Tricuspid is in the fourth intercostal space to the left of the sternum border. Mitral is in the fifth intercostal space to the midclavicular line. And epigastric is to the left midline of the xiphoid process. So I palpated all those, and I'll still take those areas with the diaphragm of my stethoscope. So we have aortic, pulmonic, Eve's point, Eve's point, tricuspid, and mitral, and epigastric. Heart sounds. The apical pulse can actually be heard in the mitral region or the apex of the heart. If it's lateral, that midclavicular line, it can mean a heart enlargement. Other heart sounds include S1, which is also found in the mitral region. You can listen to it there. S2 is in the aortic region. S3, 4, and MVP can also be noted in the mitral region, but you have to listen with the patient on their left side. Split 1 is heard in the tricuspid region. Split 2 is heard in the pulmonic region, and it's the only sound that varies with inspiration during respiration. So I'll also listen to these with the bell of the stethoscope, and I'll have him to turn over to his left side to listen for the S4 and S3, S4, and MVP sound. All right, aortic, pulmonic, Eve's point, tricuspid, and I'll have him to turn to his side so I can listen. So turn to your left side to listen to S3 and S4 to be able to hear MVP. Because also during systole, mitral valve regurgitation and atrial stenosis can be noted during systole. A good way to differentiate is the squat test, and I'll have him to do the squat test. So but before we do the squat test, I'll have him to sit on the side of the bed and lean forward and exhale while I listen to the left, listen along the left sternum border with the diaphragm of my stethoscope. So on the side of the bed, we'll get him to lean forward. Take a deep breath and exhale. All right. All right. So now, in order to differentiate, this was not a differentiating test, but we did want to listen to that. But in order to differentiate the aortic stenosis and MVP, we'll do a test called the squatting test, where we'll have him to squat. I'll listen over the mitral region, and if the clicks diminish or you don't hear them as much, or you hear them but not as much as you once did, that could actually be MVP. If they get louder, you hear a little bit more, it can actually be aortic stenosis. So we're going to squat together. All right. Ready? All right, don't squat. We'll listen in that region. All right. And that's how you could differentiate doing that particular test. So we assess the reading, we palpate it, we listen. So let's kind of move on to some of our pulses. And we'll begin by checking his carotid arteries for bruits. And we'll also check other arteries, like his brachial artery, his radial artery, his renal, iliac, femoral, and we'll even do the abdominal aorta area as well. So we'll listen. So with the Bell-Eyre stethoscope, I have him to turn his head this way. There are 3 points, and you'll start from the bottom up. Okay, turn your head the other way. Also do the brachial arteries. All right. Radial. All right. Aortic would be here in the middle. We'll do renal. Renal. Iliac. And his femoral arteries. We'll also palpate these same, well, some of the same arteries. We'll palpate the brachial, the radial, and the popliteal, and you'll check and see if they're the same on both sides. You grade pulses, and we'll grade his at the end. Also, while you're doing this, what you'll do is you will check his skin for to see if it's warm and dry. His is actually warm and dry. You'll also check skin turgor while you're doing this. And check capillary refill. So I'm going to check his capillary refill. Press down here. And if it returns brisk. And also check his skin turgor for hydration. So I'll check his popliteal pulses now. Alright. Alright. And we'll do the dorsal beams. Alright. And posterior tibia. Okay. So his skin was warm and dry. His pulses were 2+, which means that they're normal. And I also checked for edema. There are several different types of edema. There's pitting edema, where you will press down into his skin and see how long it takes for the indentures to come back up. If it's more than 4 or 5 seconds, he probably has pitting edema. Ascaria is generalized edema, so that's where you would kind of look all over, see if he has it in the face, hands, arm. That's generalized, but he doesn't have any. Pulmonary edema is also a type of edema, which will be in the lungs, and cerebral edema would be swelling to the brain, and that will be the edema, different types of edema that we will check. So next, I think we'll move to his abdomen. We'll check the abdomen for the contour. Is it round, flat? His is round. We'll look for any pulsations, any mass, any scars, navy, any dilated veins, and he doesn't have any. We'll listen in all 4 quadrants. We'll listen to see if his vowel sounds. For normal vowel sounds, they'll be from 4 to 5. For hyper vowel sounds, it will actually be, no, I said 4 to 5. Regular vowel sounds will be from 5 to 35. Hyper will be more than 35. Hypo will be less than 5. And bigeminy would be excessive vowel sounds. And with that, you would have excessive vowel sounds would actually mean that he could possibly have an obstruction. So Another thing that we listen to while we're auscultating, we try to listen for a friction rub and a venous hum. And with the friction rub, we'll listen over his liver and over his spleen. And we'll be kind of listening for a grating sound. If you hear those sounds, it could possibly mean that there's some inflammation. And he could possibly have something kind of like, possibly like gonorrhea or chlamydia. When you listen for the venous hum, you'd actually listen over the liver. Um, you listen over the venous hum, liver, and you listen over the liver, umbilicus, and aortic artery. And this is actually where, so it'll be a soft sound that you hear for that venous hum. And it actually could mean that he has cirrhosis of his liver, or she has cirrhosis of the liver. So we've inspected, we've listened. Next we percuss, and when you percuss, you actually should hear timpani throughout the abdomen. The only place you wouldn't hear it would be over the liver, and that's because it'll be dull in that region. But even over the spleen, you would hear timpani if it's normal in size. And he had timpani throughout. He did have the dullness over his liver. It's okay to palpate as long as that abdominal aortic area is not pulsating. We'll start with light palpation, and then if he has no tenderness, we'll go to deep. So since he had no tenderness, we'll do more of a deep palpation. Okay, so there are actually several tests that we could test to check for appendicitis. One is the abductor test, where we'll have him to lift his leg and we will turn his leg inward. And if he has, because you use that abductor muscle, if he has pain here, it could possibly be appendicitis. Another test we can do is the Oray's test, is when I have him to lift his leg against resistance. Good. And if he has pain here, it could actually be appendicitis. Another test for appendicitis could be rebound tenderness. You press quickly and release. If there's pain, could possibly be appendicitis. Another test that we can test for appendicitis will be the reversing sign, and that's when you would press on the opposite side, and he would actually have pain on this side. That's for appendicitis. I need the superficial spinal reflex can be done to his abdomen, and we do that. It tests T8. Wait, upper is T8, 9, and 10. Lower is 11. 8, 9, 10, and lower is 11, 12, and 13. So you just kind of look at his abdomen. You can see it, how it reacts. Hopefully he won't laugh when you, and that's a natural reflex, and it tests his reflex. So that's an easy reflex to check when he's in this supine position. I think that's everything. I hope so. But I think that we're done with this exam. Yeah, I think